Welcome back to the Lofty Lenders Homebuyer Education, where we explore tips, tricks, and stories that can help you plan your next purchase. Whether you're a first time home buyer, a move up buyer, an investor, or just looking to learn, we hope you gain a little insight today. And today I am going to be hosting this show and moving forward with my business partner, Charlie. So, hi, Charlie.
Morning. How's it going?
Great. All right. So, I think the biggest bane of my existence right now is trigger leads. I think you probably love them, right? Do you love trigger leads?
I do. I honestly, if I don't get 16 calls every hour, just BS calls, I feel lonely.
Spam isn't your favorite thing. You're saying you don't like spam calls? What?
Oh, they're so bad.
Well, you guys might be wondering what in the heck we're talking about. And trigger leads are, as the definition is put as, trigger leads come from the three major credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. When a consumer agrees to have their credit report pulled, these bureaus track that activity. If the consumer meets specific criteria set by the lenders and creditors, their information is added to a list, and then lenders and creditors can buy that information, which includes people who recently had those hard credit inquiries, aka a mortgage pull. The process is allowed under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So, as Charlie and I were just joking about, these people are getting your phone number or whoever's phone number when you go to apply for a mortgage, simply because you applied. And we can't pick and choose which credit bureaus we use. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, they have a monopoly there, and they get to sell your information, and you get extra spam calls.
Oh, unlike everything, I mean, there's a reason it's taken so long to even try and get these blocked, because it comes across where it's like, ooh, the consumer gets more options. Well, I mean, more options are great, but when you're getting browbeat with phone calls from people who don't have a reputation to uphold and they're just mean half the time or very aggressive, awful.
It's a call center mentality, right? You get beat over the head by your manager to make your phone calls, so you're making your calls to people, and our buyers end up being those people that are getting those calls, and it's just not fun to be on the other end of, for sure.
No. And, we want everyone to be successful. You want options. You want to be able to find out what's out there, but there's a difference on someone who's maybe going to try and educate you and give you some options versus a hard sale just because that's their job, is to call on these numbers put in front of them. They have no local representation. They have no real positive influence to give you other than a sale.
Yeah, and speaking of a few options, I had a gentleman moving here from Colorado here recently, and I warned him. I said, "Hey, we can do a soft poll right now. We can go through the steps to make sure that you get taken off these lists, or do our best, or we can just do a hard poll right now and pull your credit and just know you're going to get several phone calls." And he's like, "Well, Kyle, we're really chomping at the bit. We really want to get this going. Go ahead and do a hard poll. I understand the risks." And so we pulled credit. And a couple weeks later, I called him up. We were talking about other pieces of the process. We'd gone through that pre-approval process already, got everything done. And then we were about 2-3 weeks into it all. And he goes, "Man, Kyle, you were not kidding about those phone calls, dude. I get 200-300 phone calls. I've received 200 to 300 phone calls so far just from having my credit pulled." He goes, "I got spam calls before, but nothing like this. There'll be times when I'll see 5 or 6 phone calls that I miss in a 30-minute span, and they're all random numbers from all over the country, usually 800 numbers." It's like, it's ridiculous. And I said, "Yeah, the government thinks that this is okay and it's actually good for you. So, in case you want a few hundred more offers on how you can skin the same apple 100 different ways, I guess. I don't know."
And you and I are a big proponent, and a lot of people we work with, of having local. Anything that's local, if you can meet them and touch them, you don't have to see them in person, but I mean, they have a reputation to hold. It's totally different, but it's amazing how long it took to get as far as it did trying to block these things. But when we had congressmen and representatives that they are on the receiving end of these things, they finally wanted to try and do something about it because it drove them nuts. A couple of them had their spouses do the application, and then they started receiving the phone calls like, "This is ridiculous." They thought we were joking. Like, no, these are not people trying to help consumers. These are effectively scammers. I mean, I hate to say it. I know there's a couple local places that buy trigger leads. I despise that. It's a bad idea. We could do it. I don't like that mentality. So I don't know. It's amazing it's lasted this long when it is so bad.
Yeah. Well, and to that end, because of those congressmen and governors and things like that were getting those calls, it was fairly easy for the Mortgage Bankers Association to get bipartisan support on a trigger lead bill that they had proposed here. They've actually been working on it the last couple of years. It finally got tacked on to the Defense Act bill that was supposed to pass at the end of last year. We were looking like we were going to have a good shot at getting our trigger lead bill enacted. And right at the 11th hour, House Financial Services Committee Chair Patrick McHenry, who, by the way, was about to be out of
This far from retiring.
retiring, like literally a couple of days. And yeah, he decided that, I really believe in fair practices and everybody should have opportunities to shop their loan around and go to a lot of different places. I don't think he realizes that a lot of different places means 300 to 400 different opportunities. But in his mind, it's fair game. So because of that, he pulled that off there. What that bill was meant to do was not necessarily to get rid of them, but more so to change the industry practice from opting out to opting in. Meaning, Kyle, I really want more offers, so I'm going to go and I'm going to opt in to start receiving those. And instead of I just had my credit pulled and suddenly I'm getting a million calls because I never opted out. So there are ways to opt out, but it's not a great feeling, not a great, it's not something that I enjoy talking about, telling customers, hey, by the way, I'm going to pull your credit and you're going to get blown up with phone calls. Yeah. Have fun.
Well, and it's been interesting. I mean, it's been on the docket. So the Broker Association started about 5 or 6 years ago with that. And when the Banker Association kind of came on and tried to help as well, it took so many different industries. Nobody really knew what to do or how to do because no one cared on the political side. It was hard to get people on the political side to care. But I mean, I've been to DC and I'm going back again here in 4 or 5 weeks and doing the mortgage professionals broker side of pieces, and you go meet with the congressmen and senators, and it's crazy how you have to basically pay to be heard. I mean, all those political action committees, I'm not a big politics guy because it's a lot to get your opinion heard. But at the same time, you've got to get in front of everybody and let them know where it's at and then get the consumer feedback, which a lot of us just get frustrated and will block it, which is fine. But getting those to let their congressmen, let their senators know, and it come from the actual voter versus the industry. I mean, industry helps, but you never know if the industry's pushing to make a profit or if they're pushing for consumer. And that's the hard part when we're small like we are. We push for consumer advocacy, which hopefully will make it just a better working environment because we're all for competition. I mean, we don't want to see any consumer not have a good choice and a good option to compare. But that's not comparing. I mean, it's a completely different sales approach versus pride in what we do and having those good reputations to follow up.
And not to mention, it takes the Iowa nice out of the process. We get lenders from all over the country that are spamming our customers that are mainly in Iowa, and they're not getting that Iowa nice mentality. I actually had one gentleman he got a trigger lead call and they pretended as if they were already working with him. That was their sales way to try to get him to work with them. And they actually collected what they called an application fee for $600. And he actually thought it was my processor maybe reaching out, collecting information for the appraisal or something. He was a veteran, didn't understand what the heck was going on. I sent him an email, right after our call saying, hey, by the way, you might get these calls. Just, make sure that you remember that. And he goes, oh, shoot, I think I've got an issue. And it wasn't the 5-letter word of shoot that he said, that's for sure. So he had to cancel his credit card. He was just scared of the entire process. So every time he would do anything, he was constantly reaching out, hey, Kyle, is it okay to do this? Am I allowed to do that? I don't want to do something wrong. So it was good, but also really, really not.
Yeah. Well, and there's so much out there with our finances and getting access to bank accounts, getting access to your credit cards, getting access to your personal credit file. All that is so stinking scary now. Like, it's unnecessary. We all need to have easy access to our banking, but then, oh man, the calls that come in and the impersonations that happen and the theft that is so fast and you're not getting back. Or if your credit's dinged in the wrong way, then now you got to try and fix it. It's not easy. So just trying to avoid that period. It's hard to do, but again, work with people you can see.
Well, and to that point then, let's talk about some actionable takeaways here. So like you just said, I think working with people you see, talking to lenders that are local, talking to people that you can go and meet in person is huge, in my opinion.
Yep.
I know that I speak for you when I say that we love all the local lenders around here. We work together well. We share information. If I can't find a way to help a consumer, I try to recommend a couple other lenders to the agent of, hey, here's other people you could try to reach out to that might have better options. Or I might even reach out to the lender myself and say, hey, I know this customer's process or situation really well. And unfortunately, I'm just that close away from being able to make it work. Do you have that option or this option that might be able to do that? And I've definitely referred business over to what I would quote unquote call my competitors, but they're local lenders. They're great people.
We do that all the time. I mean, we try to cover the gamut as much as we can cover, but no one does everything. And so when you get those niche pieces or just a very interesting request at times, we have partners for a reason. It's like we're going to try and make that process smoother so you're not sending somebody back to a Google search. I about said Yellow Pages, whatever, Google search, and just start all over. And then you don't know who you're going to get. So, yeah, somebody you can see. I mean, the referrals from somebody you know, at least check out their reviews and then call. I mean, I love doing the video calls. We've had better luck with those. Anything you can do to make sure you can at least have that eye contact, and hopefully you can be that much more secure in at least knowing that person as much as you can. And if you want to see them in person, I know we love doing in-persons. It's not the way that much anymore.
So then tell me about your process for using opt-out pre-screen.
Oh, so we've been using this a long time, but honestly, I didn't realize that it stopped all the phone calls. We always did it for the junk mail. I mean, I hate the written junk mail from USPS, and so we've used it for years to stop that. We always did it after closing. Optoutprescreen.com. People are a little nervous because you do have to put in your social security number, but it's a government-backed site, and there's a permanent written way you can do. Don't waste your time. There's a box. Check it for 5 years. You'll know when it expires. But yeah, stopping that, and what is it, like 7 days, 10 days it takes to get you in the system, but it's going to stop all those phone calls and stop a lot of the mail. So you get really a double whammy in your favor, which is awesome.
Yeah, I've kind of started pushing people to say, hey, are you looking at that house right now? Are you going and looking at a house right now and you're calling me to get pre-approved, or are you maybe 1 or 2 weeks away? Because if you're 1 or 2 weeks away, I want you to sign out for optoutprescreen.com. A week from today, I'm going to hop in there and do a hard pull on your credit, and we're going to be able to, give you a real pre-approval letter. But I don't want you to get all those extra calls. And if it's something you're going to do tonight, okay, fine, let's do it. Let's make sure you're ready to go. Whatever the consumer controls the process, in my opinion.
Right. With the exception, I mean, you and I are both going to politely push that we don't want you to wait until it's 4 o'clock and I'm going to write an offer at 5 o'clock. Now I'm okay with you pulling my credit.
Right,
so,
right.
We can do soft pulls, which we like to do. Those don't cause the triggers, which is nice. We get the data so we can help you check your budget, check all the stuff that needs to be checked. So you are building that confidence and you are as ready as you can be, but we're not doing that hard pull until it's like, okay, now I'm ready. Or like you just said, give it 10 days, 2 weeks. And that way it stops a lot of those. You're still going to get some calls because if you have an account at XYZ Bank, they can still call you and they might monitor. And that's understandable. But I mean, a few calls is...
And the last takeaway I would tell you from this is if you go and, you sign up for a credit card, maybe you go into Kohl's and they're offering you that Kohl's Cash, the extra 20% off. When they ask you for your information to put in, be cautious about providing them too much information. If you give them your phone number and your email address, now that information has been stored with your credit report, with your credit pull. And so when they say, Kyle, I gave you my social security number and date of birth and you pulled my credit, how in the world did you get my phone number and email address? It's because that information is already stored by any previous pulls. So any phone numbers you've had you had pulled, I mean, I guess you could go to a really big extreme. You could just go get a new phone number right before we do a mortgage pull and then you'd be fine. But
everybody gets a new burner.
I need to hook up with a cell phone guy. Help me out.
And I think that this is on trigger leads today, but I mean, really, it goes back to us having clean data and knowing where your stuff's at. Just be consistent and then know what you're getting yourself into. But once all that data's out there, it just gets put into the same spot eventually. So just be aware. And if you have questions, take a phone number, call them back. You don't have to give them anything on the phone. If you want to be safe and sound, don't give anybody your information. I mean, if they're calling you back, you can play with them, hang up on them. If you're curious, just don't give them your vitals.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us today, guys. If you feel like you learned anything, if you feel like maybe you have some questions, you can reach out to us. You can go to teamchedester.com to hit our website. You can find us on all social media sites. We hope you found the conversation enjoyable and valuable. Be sure to follow and like us on social media platforms. Subscribe to the podcast for more exciting episodes. And remember, stay curious, and we'll see you next week on The Lofty Lender.